Today, I'm helping my mom coordinate moving my dad's things to the memory care unit where he is going to be moving into tomorrow. We hired this amazing company called Chaos to Calm, my mom that help with downsizing and moving somebody from a home into a smaller home, into a facility of some sort. And so today was that realization. My mom will be moving later to independent living. And today I was up in the Salisbury end where we're moving him. My mom was back where they're at. And I got to be there as the woman who coordinates things. She's wonderful with Chaos to Calm. They delivered the furniture with the movers, and we had the pictures my mom had picked out for him to have in his room. And we got to go through and decide where these pictures go. And we got pictures of eagles. My dad loves eagles. There was pictures he had taken of eagles. There's pictures my brother had taken. There's his plaques from golf of having the double eagle he got and different awards. And this award my brother made for him with a picture of an eagle he had taken. And so just sitting there and like the family pictures that my mom shared, and just that realization that my mom had to split up the family pictures because she's going to move into a separate place than him. And being a part of this reality of this transition, and tomorrow my dad moves in, it's really kind of sinking in and just feeling those emotions today. So I had a therapy with my wonderful EFT therapy practitioner. Shout out to Ruthie Cohen Joyner. And we're trying to juggle the time with all things that I had to do. They were supposed to get up to Salisbury around 11. And so I'm waiting, and then I call my mom, and she's like, oh no, the movers had to first go to help somebody else move from one unit to another, and then they'll be up. So they're thinking more like 2:00. So I go out to run some errands, and I go get my glasses adjusted, and I go get my TB test read that I need for my new jobs. And I'm driving to the house. I'm about at the intersection to turn left to go to where our neighborhood is. And Anne, the person from Chaos to Calm, calls me, and she says, the movers are there. They were supposed to let me know when they were heading there, and they didn't. And they're there now, and I'm still at your mom's. And so she's got to drive up. I'm like, I'll head there now. And I just did a turn left, and 7 minutes later, I was where my dad's place was at. And so I had to juggle my time. I had to juggle my day. And so I came home. It's 3:30 done, and I'm figuring out, okay, what next? Now I'm going to spend the night at my mom's. This was part of the plan so that I'm there in the morning to help them move my dad up. And I didn't want to drive in bad traffic. And I was juggling what time I was leaving and making this appointment work for myself. And I was going to stop somewhere halfway. And I'm like, do I do my session from, like a coffee house kind of place? And I'm like, I know where I'll go. Halfway between where we live now and my parents is where we used to live. And there's a church by the neighborhood where I used to walk. And when I'd walk here, there'd be utility people who would start their day or end their day here because it's this big parking lot and there's this big walking path here. And it was just perfect. And I got here early and I drove around the neighborhood. I have not been here, I don't think, since we moved in October. It is now June as we record this. And I did my session and tapped through a lot of things, and you're just realizing how in the middle of all this helping my parents, I've got to stay focused on what I need to. And so now here I am in my neighborhood and about to go walk and see if I can visit the cat. We had outside cats, and there were 2 left when we moved, and our neighbors were caring for them. And one, I think, got hit by a car, and there's 1 left. And I want to go see Boomy. And nothing like a live right now story.
Well, hello, this is Don.
And this is Gina with Focused Healthy Family.
And this is podcast number 122. And today we're kind of ad-libbing in a way because of all that's going on for us, and Gina, you're taking the I don't know if the brunt of it is the right way to do it, but
memory lane transitions and grounding ourselves, caring for the caregiver. realizing I've got to take care of myself. And like I said to you today, Don, what I need from you is you to be here for me. I am supporting my mom, who's been my dad's caregiver, and stepping in to support them. And like, I need you to support me in doing that. And so we'll create a wonderful title for all of that.
Yeah. Well, the other, what's I've been finding kind of interesting about this is that I'm kind of going through this for the first time too, and kind of losing a parent, and that mine is not anything really like yours. Yours, that's your, biological parents. For me, it's just my in-laws, but I didn't go through a lot of this as much as what we're going through with my parents. My father died pretty kind of quickly with the heart
And
attack.
you were 17, so
Yeah.
yeah.
And my sister had to really kind of deal with my mom's stuff. I didn't get as much involved in it as you're getting involved with your parents. So this is kind of an interesting experience for me. And I also, have some of the emotions are coming out because they, I've known them, not as long as you have, of course, um, but how many, 30 years, almost probably 31 years, really, in a way. And
Yeah, because we've been married for 30 and we met what a year before we got married. A
something
year and
like
a
that,
couple months.
roughly.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So
and your mom and dad were always pretty cool people to, I was really kind of blessed with having some great in-laws that we didn't have what I've heard other people talk about in-laws, and how they interfere, and they all kinds of different stuff, and we didn't have that. We had Your parents were, like I say, they were very good to us. They helped us out in so many ways. So to see, especially like seeing your father, going kind of going downhill like this is kind of tough, because I knew him as the vibrant man that he was, and well,
well,
and
and as your father-in-law, he was sort of a father figure, right? He
yeah.
helped us when we moved. He helped us take care of things physically in the house. And
Oh, yeah. Well, I remember, he saved us as far as when we did the kitchen. I don't know, we you and I, redid our kitchen at that house that you're going to be going around to. Um, and we ripped out that paneling, and I wanted to put drywall up there, and I would have put it up all wrong. Luckily, I talked to your dad like the night before, and the he said, "Oh no, you want to do it this way, and that the way he wanted to do it was the way to do it, and it really, if I would have done it the way I was going to do it, it would have been really messed up, and so
well,
he
and then
did.
the hard part, the taping part, you because that was difficult, you paid the guy to do that, and then he didn't even do the best job.
No, well, and your
But
dad, he worked,
well, my dad's dad was a carpenter and built houses, and my dad learned from him. And my dad went on to be an engineer, but he learned a lot of construction from my dad and the furniture he made. And they built sheds together in at least one of the houses I lived in, if not two. Yeah, and so he learned that from his dad, and he helped you. Um,
yeah, many times. I mean, it wasn't just one time, you know. He's always doing stuff for us. He was very and that was our vacation summer home, when we when they moved down to the lake. At the time we didn't have a lot of money to go do vacations, so that was kind of our vacation, and they did everything for us. It was so.
well, and one year they went to Alaska, and so we went and used their house by ourselves and had a vacation with Yumi and Harrison. At the time, it was just
Yeah,
us and our oldest. And we had a couple nights all together at their house. And yeah, and plus all the family visits there and all the fun on the lake in his boat. And I just gonna step back and talk about just the emotional part of this as I was working with my coach. And she was asking me how I'm feeling and doing with things. And I started to talk about work and I started to talk about this other stuff. And she's like, but what about the feelings? And so it's just perfect that I'm here in this old neighborhood that we lived in for 22 and a half years. We lived in this side of Charlotte the whole time we raised a family. We, lived just down the road from here before we moved here. I lived not far from there in my first apartment in Charlotte. So I've been in kind of the same area of Charlotte the whole 32 years, going on 33. And so with my dad moving in this transition, like it just coming back here in this neighborhood, it's just that it pulls on that emotion because when we lived here, we were 40 minutes from my parents. And that's part of the reason they left when they had to leave the lake and the big house and they couldn't take care of that down outside of Columbia. They came closer to us and they moved into a 55 plus community that was about a 40-minute drive from us. And so we could be there frequently. And then when we moved, the new place checked almost all the boxes, but the fact that it was further from my parents and it's just so perfect where we're moving to because they're going to be close and it's going to be easy drives and less traffic and it's a whole new chapter. And yet I'm having a lot of emotions. I'm walking into the neighborhood here as we're talking, Don, and it's just a lot. Because it just feels like I'm out taking a walk, talking on Instagram or something like I did. It doesn't even feel weird, but I drove past the house already because my appointment had to get pushed to 5:15. So I actually had extra time and I drove through the neighborhood and the house doesn't even look like our house. They painted the brick white. It was a split level. It's still a split level with red brick and white siding. And now it's completely white. So it looks like this tall white thing.
Yeah, it's very
and
different.
it's kind of weird. It's kind of like, oh, that's where I used to live, but that's a different house. Um,
The neat part about, talk about but the neat part about it is we're now we sold that house to somebody that's going to put all new memories into it with the family and
a young family with newborn and a young toddler. We moved in there with a 3.5-year-old. They've even shared with us some of the inside remodeling they've done, which is just amazing. And just driving over here, Don, that the light is already hanging at Arlington Church and Albemarle Road.
oh yeah,
It it hasn't been activated yet. They've cleared out. There's a 55 plus community up here. Someone told me they're putting a Publix in. They've cleared the land out. It already looks different from October to June. Driving down Albemarle Road. Yeah, I mean, there's an area where they've cleared out just around, I don't know, just around Crestwin. Yeah, it's already changing. And yet driving through the neighborhood, it's like, oh, same old bumpy roads, gravel, and where they dug it up to put drainage in, it's still all broken up pavement. And our interesting little neighborhood of houses ranging from almost 60 years old to brand new.
One has the memories of Boy Scouts and selling popcorn. We got to know so many neighbors because of that.
Just raising our kids.
Yeah.
Abby was born here. Lexi was born here. Girl Scouts, popcorn, neighbors. I had a home birth for Lexi, and we had to do birth classes, and we hosted them at our house with our midwife. And I met.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
And little did I know, someone else was using the same midwife, and she lived in my neighborhood, and I met her through that. And,
yeah.
So I'm walking down Southampton. This leads to Cumberland Drive, where we lived for 22 and a half years. And it's just,
I think this is, part of what I would say is very important for you, for me too, going through these memories, having these memories when you're in this transitional time, the emotions. I think this is probably good, for anybody to kind of relive some of the memories when you've got a situation like this.
And take time to stop and feel your feelings and give yourself space for that, because it's so easy to get caught up in the doing. I mean, it's only been 6-7 months since we lived here. It feels like 100 years ago in some ways. I mean, it feels familiar, like I was just here yesterday, but so much has happened between then and now.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to give our space for those feelings. And when you're so busy doing things, those feelings get bottled up inside, right?
You know, that's why people kind of sometimes explode when something happens to somebody and they, you know, they're too busy taking care of things. And then there's that breaking point where those feelings come washing out and they need to be let out, because if you don't let the feelings come out, they go internal and they turn into disease and depression and physical ailments in your body. And, you know, things happen. Um, and so it can be really tricky. Even someone like me who considers myself a feeling person and sensitive, my coach had to keep, but what are you feeling, Gina? No, not everybody else. No, what are you going to do? How are you going to take care of everybody? No, what about your feelings? And had to keep bringing me back to that. And it's not the first time. And I'm going to wave at people like I live here because I still feel that. I feel so grounded in this neighborhood. If I see Boomy, um, that's what I want right now. I want to see our cat. When we left here, there were
Are you on
3.
our street?
No, I'm still on Southampton. I'm walking slow. It's hot and I'm trying to
Yeah,
keep my
no,
camera
that's all right. I
steady.
just curious
I
as
was
to,
just, and so only Boomy is left of our outside cats. And we know our neighbors are taking good care of her. And I texted Helen, but I don't think she's messaged me back. Nope. She told me to let her know if we're ever in the area, that's our neighbor. And so I did text her just before I called you. And even though it's hot, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to park at the church and just walk through the neighborhood. Um,
I
and
take the short circle instead of,
I'm hoping Boomy comes out, and I'm not going to take any circle at all. I want to visit Boomy. I want to see this cat who showed up in our yard when she was less than a year with her mother, Noxie. And Noxie, who's no longer living, who had kittens outside our door. And my son has one of those kittens now. And they're part of our family. And it was tough leaving them behind. And yet they'd been in the neighborhood that we couldn't take them with us. Yeah, so there's a lot of just emotion tied into our outside cats. As
well,
I've told you, Doc, go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna kind of talk a little broader sense about the idea of grief too in this, that, you know, these transitions. Oh, it kind of goes to the people think about grief, they think about death, you know, and I think that
Yeah.
more people are evolving into knowing that grief is evolved around any transition, around divorce,
Hmm.
around, and, you know, so
Yeah. When
being
I
able,
found my dad's diagnosis of Parkinson's, even though he was highly functional and not really having problems, that grief and that change, the grief and you surviving your heart attack. I mean, grief and changes, moves, even positive changes. There's elements of grief like you're talking about.
yeah. And one of the things I tell people, and I try to work with people on is what, and I was listening to something this morning, they even talked about this, of grief. What we want to see grief do is morph into sadness, but be able to do it, not rush the grief either. You know, I think too many people, they give a period of time that people should be grieving, and then it should be over, you know. And I think we need to be able to just, you know, address grief and see grief for when, as long as it needs to be there, and then, like I say, slowly transition it into a more of a sadness. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that's kind of the way I've been looking at it.
Yeah, I'm approaching the house. Um, there's a neighbor out, but I'm just going to pretend like I'm a stranger.
What neighbor? Which one?
The one I want to say hello to. You know what neighbor. And and there's the house. Okay, now it's hitting me. It's
You
just
want?
so weird
I don't
that
know if we
it's
should
white.
show it or not.
Um, I don't know. I think the emotions on my face speak louder. The house the house has more meaning to us than it does to the people we're speaking to. Um, I really want to find Boomy. I just have this vision of her recognizing my voice, her coming out to greet me.
Yeah.
And I want to see her. The neighbor's cars are there. I texted the neighbor. It's got a pretty front. Oh, they took out all the bushes.
Yeah.
The bushes are all, oh, the giant holly tree.
Yeah. They took
Is
all
it,
the stuff in
is it,
front.
is it cut? There's still two things in front of the house, but either they cut down the holly bush. There's a something growth there. That's why the house looks so weird and white and tall, because the bushes are gone.
Yeah.
And oh, so many memories here, good and bad, Don. You know, last time this year, in the spring, we had challenges, and the kids had anxiety struggles in this
When you're going
neighborhood.
by the neighbor
Oh,
who we
Boomy, there she is. Hey, Boom, Boom. Hey, Boomy.
you want to pause for a moment or
I don't know if I can flip the camera. Girl. Hey, Boomy. Yeah, let me pause.
all right, I'll pause the recording.
Oh.
And now the journey begins again the next day. All right. So we left off. You were taking a tour through our old neighborhood and met some of our neighbors, and you got a chance at that point to sit with the Boomy, the cat we left behind with our neighbor. So what's been going on? Because you're at the hospital now, so it's been quite a dramatic change.
Yes, I had stopped midway for a 5 o'clock coaching session and walked down to the old neighbors that we knew, and they took care of the outside cats that we left behind, and because they had always been outside kind of community cats. And I found Boomy in the driveway, and I sat down, and the neighbor came out because he thought I had fallen, and then we got talking. And so I was there for quite a while talking to them, mostly talking cats, and heading to my parents because I was planning to spend the night and be there in the morning to move my dad into the memory care facility that's 3.5 miles from our house. So I get to the house. Mom's getting ready for bed. Dad's in bed already, as expected. Spend some time with my mom chatting. I get to sleep. I wake up at 6, and I actually took some time for myself. I did some writing in my journal. They have a screened-in porch. My dad wasn't awake yet, so I'm like, let me take some time for myself. We weren't in a hurry. We were going to get ready, get things going, pack up. Everything for my dad was there already. His clothes, everything was set up yesterday. And I went outside on the grass, and I put my bare feet in the grass and did yoga poses and listened to my meditation songs. And I was taking my time. And then Mom came to tell me, I went inside and she said, he tried to get up at 5:30. He woke up, he had to go to the bathroom, but he said he couldn't move. And so he went back to sleep. That's typical of his Parkinson's. And so at 7, it was time for his medicine, because he often needs his Parkinson's medicine to get going in the morning. And so she always wakes him up by 7. She couldn't get him awake. She's like, Gina, I can't wake him up. So I went in there, Dad. Dad's not responding. My healthcare knowledge kicks in. His eyes are twitching around. He's not responding. You pound on their sternum, you rub really hard. It's arousing. And he's making faces. And finally I said, so I'm like, he couldn't talk. And I said, Dad, if you can hear me, close your eyes. And he closed his eyes. I'm like, Dad, can you wiggle your toes? He wiggled his toes, but he was still not very alert and responsive. I told Mom, get me the blood pressure cuff. His blood pressure was 197/90. And I'm like, Dad has normally mid to low blood pressure. And I got the phone. I got the home phone because I knew they would be able to figure out where we were. I can't always remember my parents' address, so I knew to call from the home phone. And because he called 911, the medic came on, was able to tell him his blood pressure reading. He seemed weaker on the left side. Um, the non-responsive, if someone has any signs of stroke, you need to call 911 ASAP. If it's a massive stroke, there's medicine that they can give, but they have to give it within the first short number of hours, so you don't wait around. So I knew all these things. And the medics got there, but I don't know, they got there quickly. And he was still not very responsive. And they did what I did. And his blood pressure with the reading was still 190 over something. Off he goes to the hospital. And my mom was hoping he would go to the hospital close to the house, but that's not a stroke center. If you're having something like a stroke or heart attack, you have to go to a specialty hospital. So everything changed. We thought we were packing up to take him to memory care, and instead we were going to the hospital. And my ability to jump in these situations, I've had way too much experience. And I packed up my stuff quickly. I told Mom, I'll get over there first. I knew she needed time to get ready and take care of herself. And I grabbed all my stuff, and of course I headed out, and it's like 8 o'clock. The medics had left at 7:30, and I'm like, oh, traffic. And it took at least, I don't know how long, it felt like it took forever to get there because of traffic. It's probably a 35-minute drive, maybe a little longer with traffic. And I called my brother. I contacted people before I left. I reached out to Don, told him what's going on, said, I'm going to need you today. I sent message to my brother and sister. We got a group chat, let them know what was going on. And then, like, I messaged my brother, I'm sitting in a stoplight, so I'm doing the voice to text, I won't say it, but hey, send a message to my brother. And I just said, Darren, call Mom, check on her. And so he saw that before he saw the group message. So he called her and talked to her, and so he could check on her. And so it's like, I knew, like, okay, what piece is the puzzle here? What needs to go on? Who can be supportive? Who can be helpful? Worrying about Mom and this. And luckily, Mom kind of stays calm through things. I don't know that she realized the severity that I saw. Knowing too much can be helpful. It also can be a curse. I know she was so grateful I was there because, I don't know. So he had some definite left-sided weakness. We got him into the emergency room. I got there. It was a little nerve-wracking. I did some tapping on my way to the hospital. I connected on Marco Polo with my support group because, I knew the reality that could likely be, looks like a stroke, and it's something you can survive, and it's something you sometimes don't. And it was helpful that he was moving all limbs and responsive when we left, but that's no guarantee. And I let my feelings out. I cried, and it felt good because these feelings had been trapped inside of me through all this transition, through setting up his room at memory care just yesterday. That feels like a week ago. It was yesterday, right, Don?
Yeah.
And just, kind of hitting me, Dad's going to be living here, and he's not going to be living in the same building as Mom. And,
Well, you said the picture splitting was kind of a little bit of a, I don't know what I'd say, trigger, but just kind of sad that they were going to have to split family pictures between the two places, the two houses, or whatever you want to call it, however you want to.
Guess I got a small glimpse into divorce, but with divorce, you wouldn't want pictures of each other. I don't know, but it was, and just kind of really, because I've worked in facilities like this all the time and help families through this, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is me and my dad. I'm going to be that family member who comes in and visits my dad and gets to know the other residents there, and like, it just really, people are checking on me. Or sharing information. Things are scrolling across my phone. So, having the phone, having message threads already in place with my family, which we had, that I just went to, it's what, my sister, my brother, and you and me and my mom, updating and everything. And my dad tends to go in the hospital when we're all planning to get together anyhow.
That's right.
Sister was coming down to visit him at his new place in the memory care. And my mom was going to be spending the night up there tonight. And I was going to go into work tomorrow. And
Well, I think it speaks to, this has been kind of a day in the life for you, and it kind of speaks to one, the taking care of yourself. Two, I think is being flexible for the 1 minute change, or it just, so
well,
it
and with geriatrics, being that flexible, right? You just don't know. We set
yeah.
plans in motion, and yet these things can happen. Sorry.
No, and it goes to the whole thing we talk about wanting to communicate early, because as we've seen it just in this last 2 days, things change on a dime, and you never know. So having communication, like you said, you had the channel set up to your siblings, and you've been communicating with them. You knew what to do and how, and you could do it quickly.
I said to mom, I said, if you had to go to the hospital, this was the right timing because we're all ready to move in somewhere. He's either
That's
going, he's either going from here to rehab to the memory care or going from here to the memory care. He's not going back to the house.
yeah.
But when we were leaving the house, she's like, she's going through, oh my God, now what's going to happen? How things going to change? And I was able to say, okay, mom, he's going to the hospital. From there, if he needs to stay, he's going to go to memory care. I mean, he's going to go to rehab, and that, things are still going to go, and I told her I would call and talk to those people. Nothing changes. She's already paying for him to be in memory care. And the monthly payments had started already. That's how we got his stuff moved in. And just being able to calm her down in it. Cause in the middle of it, she was stressed enough because she thought she was moving her husband into memory care that day.
Yeah.
And that was tough on her plate. And
This is
and she's also trying to think about selling the house and everything else she's got to do to get ready for her move. And then this, I'm glad I was there. She's glad I was there. It was just wonderful that I was there.
yeah.
And so my role today was really helping her a lot and kind of being like, Mom, let me take that for you. She was talking to a doctor and the person called about her facility where she's moving to, and let me just handle that. And I handled those calls and I took care of that extra stuff. And I was able to just, tell her, Mom, I've got that. And I also was able to, ask for what I needed. I thought about food for myself as I left the house this morning. I had bought strawberries and goat cheese and gluten-free English muffins yesterday, and I was going to enjoy an English muffin and goat cheese and share the strawberries with my mom and dad. And I grabbed it and I almost didn't. And I'm so glad I did, because whenever I sat down to eat, I dipped my strawberries and goat cheese, and that was my breakfast. And then when Dad was settled in the emergency room, we went and okay, Mom, let's go get lunch. And we went to the cafeteria and got lunch together. And but it's not always smooth, and my family's texting and, okay, does he have his MRI already? Is he, has this happened already? Hospital is slow. So in a city hospital, at least here in Charlotte at Atrium Health, they've got security at the emergency room. It used to be once you got into the emergency room area, you could go to the regular hospital area. They've got that door blocked. We go through security, go through whatever the sensor is, you put your bags down, they check through all your bags, then you walk through. You get that done, then you go stand in line. They got to take your picture, they got to find out who you're coming to visit, they put your visitor ID badge in, and then you have to get clearance to go back.
Wow.
And I've had to do this in the past, but usually they give me clearance right away. Sometimes they allow only limit the number of visitors, but my mom wasn't there yet and they weren't letting me back, and I'm panicking. But he was out for tests. They're like, don't worry, he's with somebody. And I'm like, I want to be the one with him.
Well, and
So
I
then,
think that, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
well, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, no, I was going to say, that it kind of goes to the point of you can set aside the having to text your siblings right off the bat. If you're in the midst of this, you don't have to worry about that part. You can do a quick text, say, I will get back to you, and leave it that, instead.
So some of those early texts and calls were for me. Like I
Yeah.
reached out, and it's like I knew when I was stuck waiting. Like, I'm just gonna call my brother. It's 8:30 or whatever in the morning. I know he'll pick up. Um, and I called him and I was talking to him and telling him, and then they said, okay, you can go back now. So I kept my brother on the phone, and we went back to see Dad together. He was on
Yeah.
the phone, and Dad was talking and alert, and he said hi to Darren, and I was like, okay, Darren, we know where we're at. He's good. I'll keep you updated. So I called him for my support and to fill him in,
Mhm.
and it was a short call, but it was kind of neat. We walked back there, and he got to hear Dad himself and share that information with others. So then Mom came, and then when we need to go through lunch, we exit. It's quick to exit, but then we have to walk around to the main entrance side, go through security there. We already had our badges, so we kind of like, yeah, just see that you have your badge, and then you're good. We're just going to cafeteria, and you nod and wink, and then you go find the cafeteria, and then you have to exit out the main entrance, and then you have to go back in the emergency room entrance, and you got to go through security all over again. So I tried to minimize my bags, but then at what point it's like, okay, I might want some of my stuff. I need my charging cord, go to the car, get the bags, go through security, and go into the ER. You got to wait till they let you in, and they're, one time we came back in, my mom and I had eaten lunch, and we were coming back in, and the pharmacist had called her, and we of course weren't in the room when the pharmacy person who confirms his medicines. So she's like, I'm coming there. She's like, okay, I'll circle back around. So my mom was very eager to get back inside. Well, as we're walking into the building, we hear this guy say, this woman's either having a stroke or a heart attack. She needs to get inside. And like, he had to help her inside. He's like, we'll go on in. And he had to go through like the same procedure. I mean, they let him in pretty quickly, but then he had to wait in line because I was like, you go first. He's like, are you sure it's okay? It's like she's having numbness in her arm. And apparently she had been apparently it had been going on for 3 weeks. And she had been for MRI. And he had the disc of the MRI and was told, take her to the hospital now.
Yeah.
So he got to the desk with this. And the woman's saying, well, how long has the weakness been going on? And he said 3 weeks. And I thought I heard her say, that's not a stroke. And I'm going, this lady's giving medical advice.
Yeah.
It's just the bureaucracy, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there watching this, and I'm crawling out of my skin, and I'm like, okay, it's not acute. Maybe the stroke happened 3 weeks ago. But lady behind the desk, don't be telling this woman this stroke. And of course, this woman's texting on her, and she's coherent. She just has numbness on her arm. And it's like, well, how long did she wait to go to the doctor? I don't know the backstory of that. So you're surrounded by all this and all this going on. And I'm just hyper alert to the situation. Every time my dad's come here, I'm like, you need a geriatric ER. You have pediatric ERs, but you don't have geriatric. At least I'm sure there's some. I was going to look that up. Somewhere in the country there is one. And so I'm just very aware. And it's helpful that I'm aware of different things. I know the questions to ask. And yet I also know what problems could be happening. Also,
Yeah.
he was in
You
a
have an
trauma.
advantage.
He was in a trauma room this time. He's not been in a trauma room before because he came in as a possible code stroke or whatever.
Yeah.
But then as soon as he was stable, when you're stable in the ER, you don't get any attention. They were admitting him. Once they said you're being admitted, we got other people, and they have other people they have to tend to. And finally, they moved us out of the trauma area. It's a procedure. It's a procedure, and it's not as simple as you think.
So
So
maybe just a moment wrap up of like this journey you've been over the last 2 days. Just some couple of thoughts about it, so we can kind of wrap this up.
pure chaos, and who knows what's happening and go with the flow. That's my wrap up.
There you go. There
We
you
don't
go.
know what to expect. It is helpful to have someone who knows and has some information. It's helpful to have someone, and yet, if you have someone who works in healthcare and they're not right there, it can be helpful and it can be not helpful.
Yeah.
The person who's right there, front and center with things, you need to be patient with that person, even if you have more medical knowledge, because they're the ones in the moment handling it. And, if it's, if like in my situation, I needed to be there for my mom. My dad's been in and out of the hospital numerous times, and she used to be on top of everything and taking care of everything when he was, capable of
Mhm.
taking care of himself, and had back surgeries. And now it's been harder.
Yeah.
And I've
So
seen her had to step up more. And so I had to know what I had to do to help my mom. I had to know what to do to help me. And
yeah.
I knew from prior experience to say, Don, I might need you to make me a smoothie and bring me food. Reach out to me, check back with me, because time's going to get away from me. It's like I had to be conscious of, okay, mom, we need to go eat lunch now. Making sure we're being fed, making sure, if someone might just eat a bar, or they get, because we could easily get depleted. And, it's so true. You've got to care for yourself to care for others. And it sounds cliche, yet when you're busy, when you're in that moment of urgency, some of the systems kind of shut down, and you don't
Yeah.
even think being hungry or thirsty, and you don't even realize it until you're exhausted. And there was a point tonight, my mom was going to stick around till the nurse came in. She goes, as long as I leave by 8, and it's 7:30, the nurse isn't in yet. And I'm like, Mom, why don't you head home? She's like, yeah, I'm tired.
Yeah.
And I
So I
was
think
able,
it's a lot of asking. If you don't have the medical background, is just ask questions, even if you think they're stupid questions. Just ask them. Ask for what you need. Ask for, you
have a
know,
note, have a notebook, be able to write things
yeah,
down, medication lists. You should have that information. If it's your parent, they should have a copy and be able to give it to you. My mom had that to be able to give to the medics. Of course, then the medic forgets to give it to the people at the hospital. And they said that
have
happened
have
all
a
the time.
second copy.
The medics asked my mom for the copy, and that would have been the copy she carried with her. Well, they actually went and found it.
Yeah.
But you have to keep persisting, you have to keep asking, and everybody's doing their part. And yes, it's aggravating the way things work in the ER, and yet their job is just to attend to the emergencies and get
Yeah.
you trained into where you need to go. So if they're not paying attention to you, typically it means there's someone more urgent. It sounds awful.
But it's what do they call it, what they do before, like MASH used to have, they have beforehand they would be checking people out and see who
True.
triage. Yes. Yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway.
So to wrap up,
Oh, I thought
it's
that's what we were doing.
it's a journey. I'm finally getting my thoughts together, Don. This is the first time I sat down in a comfortable chair
Yeah.
and took a minute. Dad's asleep. I haven't driven home yet. I'm sitting in the chair. It's quiet here. And knowing that things can happen and having plans in place, because things are not going to go as expected. And when they do, hooray. But it's like expect the unexpected, because the older we are, the more risk we are for different things, the more we have one condition. My dad had no history of high blood pressure, stroke, heart issues, none of that. He had no history of any of that. That was
Yeah.
not what we were. He's had pneumonia over and over again. He falls. He's had back problems, neck problems. So, that's where it really helps to have those things in place, and to reach out and ask for the help, and find someone who can support you and then knows. Ask the OT. Don, when's our next Ask the OT?
July 1st, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that's our podcast for today. We hope that you've enjoyed it, our little journey through all kinds of memories and caregiving experiences. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love comments. Leave us a comment about what you think, what your thoughts are. Are you going through the same situation? We'd love to hear your story. If you like what you heard, you can find out more about our parenting coaching program, our consulting we do for people that are in this kind of situation. We have a podcast, our blog. We have Tuesday tips for parents. And they're all on our website, www.focusedhealthyfamily.com. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram. And again, at our next Ask the OT, again, July 1st, 7 p.m.
And do reach out and connect with us, because I am putting together booklets of information. The first thing I am going to complete is kind of navigating this journey of hospital to rehab to home, and how that goes, because I have lots of information to share. I have a professional experience and personal experience.
A lot of that.
And around that, I am now doing consults with people. If you're in the middle of this, I am happy to consult with people either virtually or especially in person, or virtually, or both, or a combination. My knowledge of the greater Charlotte area, as far as specific facilities in that, is local, yet this applies to many different facilities, and it's often just knowing the questions to ask. So I want to help you with that. Come on to our Ask the OT, find our other podcasts around this topic, and also know that you can hire someone to help you in the process. Because remember, how we speak to our children today shapes their future, and it shapes ours when their children start to take care of us.